It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. It is an emergency podcast. The entire Sooner Scoop crew has gathered. It's so exciting I can barely talk. But the Sooners get a huge commitment from Brock Vandagriff, number one overall player in the country for 2021 in the Rivals 100 that was just released. And, well, Josh, let's start with you. I know you've been kind of tracking this and leaving some breadcrumbs here and there. But what does this mean for the Sooners, and how did it all go down?
First, I think you have to start with the obvious. I think this is the biggest commitment in the Lincoln Riley era. This is a huge deal. And this is not just a statement of, okay, Oklahoma's doing well in recruiting. We all know that. They've gone into Georgia in 2 of 3 years and landed one of the top 5 players in that class in the country. So, I mean, you're just talking about something that is incredibly rare for Oklahoma to be able to do. And to go in and land a guy like this, I think it starts to build what we've talked about for a while now of, if you want to play quarterback, Lincoln Riley's the guy you want to go play for. And I think this only backs that up. It helps Oklahoma in starting that 2021 class. And this is, like I said, this is a massive deal, and it's completely worthy of a emergency pod.
Let me throw this out there too, because I had talked to somebody and kind of told them it was I won't say the name. It was an older football coach, and I said, well, OU's probably going to get this 2021 quarterback that's the number one player in the country, and I got the old man response, which was 2021's a long ways away. Doesn't matter till they sign on the dotted line. But, I mean, this with quarterbacks, guys, this is just different, isn't it, Bob? I mean, everybody's slotted. They pick their spot. And for the most, it happens with coaching changes and stuff. But unless there's a coaching change, most of these guys usually stick with where they pick, even 2 years out.
And you can look at Sooners' recent history for a great example. Chris Robinson was June 2015 for the 2017 class. Spencer Rattler's June 2017 for 2019.
Yeah.
When you've got that cornerstone, other pieces seem to fall a lot easier, especially at receiver. Look at the 2 receiving classes for 2017 and 2019. That's all you need to know, that when you've got your quarterback, it's pretty easy to get some of those other great players to come along with you. We've sort of been on the fence about what's going on with 2020 quarterback and receiver. We don't really know who are going to be those guys. Well, you're not going to have that issue. You already have Cody Jackson, and now when you add Brock, look out for all the other top talent that's going to join this group.
Josh has seen Brock Vandagriff in person at the Atlanta Rivals Regional. Eddie and I have seen him at OU. Bob wasn't there. We've all three seen him, Eddie, and I mean, we all kind of came away with the same impression. Like, that's not a sophomore.
Yeah, I mean, you know who he is. It was very easy to tell who he was, even if you didn't know what he looked like. When we saw him work out at Oklahoma's summer camp, it was that second weekend of guys working out down there, and I mean, he has a cannon for an arm, and I that was the first thing that jumped off the page to me when you sent over that RCS video when you traveled out to Atlanta, Josh, was the fact that he has a really strong arm. He has a kind of a presence about him. I mean, even he was sitting there with Jalen Hurts down in Norman on that Saturday. And
well, that was the thing. They were standing together. They were the exact same height.
They were.
I mean, this is a tall kid, too.
He's a big-ass kid. And I wonder, how good of a recruiting job did Oklahoma do as far as getting him to commit this early? It is pretty early for a guy that ranked that highly, I would think.
It's a little different at quarterback, though. True. Because you almost need to get that guy so you can set the rest of your class up. But I mean, it's just,
which is weird because 2020 is, you can't call it a failure, but it's weird that Lincoln didn't get that. I mean, he thought it was going to be Bryce Young,
which would have been July of 2018 for 2020. He's got his pattern.
He committed, yeah.
that he wants to follow.
Awkward time for them to be trying to get a quarterback in between. I guess Jalen Hurts wrapping up his career and the start of what I think everybody thinks would be the Spencer Rattler portion of his career.
Well, I mean, and Bryce Young was the only time, wasn't it, that Lincoln didn't get the guy that he initially started? Like Chris Robinson became his first offer at quarterback. He ended up getting him. I mean, you had the transfer. I mean, but well, I guess he would have wanted somebody else besides. What I can't even remember Mordecai's. Like there was somebody before Tanner Mordecai.
Cam Rising.
Well, yeah, Cam Rising.
Yeah, but he got the commitment.
Looked
and then he
Adrian Martinez. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't mad he got Mordecai. But yeah.
Yeah, with Rising, I mean, that's kind of the one example where people, what you were talking about earlier, Kerry, with the old coaches, like, oh, it doesn't really matter. That doesn't happen much because quarterbacks is kind of like musical chairs. There's all these spots, and once one guy sits down, everybody starts following in order because there's a pecking order. Oklahoma hasn't made any other 2021 quarterback offers. And from what I understand of his trip a couple of weeks ago, basically Oklahoma kind of said, look, we're fine with you if you want to take a few more trips, if you want to continue looking around a little bit, but we need to have a pretty good indication that you're probably going to be our guy. Because if not, we've got to start developing relationships with other players so that we can recruit them. And if you go to Georgia, you go to Florida, we have options that will work for us. Because like I said, they know that timeline at quarterback is so accelerated. So you've got to kind of account for that. And that looks like what they've done here. And again, I don't know. I guess we got to be a little bit transparent here. As we record this, I don't know that you've all had a chance to watch Chad Simmons' interview with him, but he talked about he actually committed during the trip. Now, that's not exactly how it was worded to me, but I mean, I got the impression that there was definitely kind of a wink and a nod, but it sounds like he committed, stayed there that same night. I guess it would have been Saturday night, wakes up Sunday, calls Lincoln and kind of says, I'm still on board. Let's do this. So, like I said, Oklahoma has just done an outstanding job of kind of walking that fine line of, okay, you're great and we really want you and you're our priority, but at the same time, we need to know what you're thinking.
Wrapping up a guy this early and obviously the number one ranked player in the initial Rivals 100 rankings for 2021. I mean, Oklahoma's never really, have they been in this spot
been in the spotlight
the
like
last
this?
decade? Yeah. Obviously, it hasn't happened. I mean, where do they go from here? How can you capitalize on something like this and not let this be in some ways, it is the biggest point of the 2021 class, but how do you not let it be the biggest portion of it?
Well, I mean, think about Spencer Rattler and the relationship he started developing with all those receivers and going to the opening together. And
oh, sure. They don't probably get 3 5-stars if Spencer Rattler's not in that group, don't you think?
Playing in the U.S. Army game, I mean, that was something that you can't ignore, and it'll play out. I'm not saying it'll play out the exact same way. They're going to get another 3 5-stars, but this gives a chance for Brock Vandagriff to work on all these other top targets for Oklahoma in 2021.
And this is such, Josh said the biggest commitment for Riley, and it's just a clear-cut win. There's no qualifier to this. With Hazelwood, I think there's still a lot of people that think Georgia lost him more than OU won that battle. You can't say that. There was no connection at all, Vandagriff with OU, before this recruiting process. This is just a clear-cut win and kind of sends that message to any offensive top recruit. Yeah, when OU offers, you better listen.
And this is Bama on offense. I mean, it's what it is. I mean, yeah, Georgia, you know what? You're a great school. You're competing for championships, but you're not seen as, the offensive destination in college football. That's clearly Oklahoma, and Vandagriff kind of puts a cherry on the top of that reputation.
Well, and what's amazing about that is Georgia may have a first-round draft pick under
Jake
center
Fromm.
this year.
Yeah.
Jake Fromm is a really talented guy. Now, I'm not as nuts about him as it sounds like you are, but I mean, there are people projecting him as a first-round pick. And
what I think about Jake Fromm is if he gets in the right system, like if he were playing, like he could be Troy Aikman. He's not going to be Drew Brees. He's got to be in a good
Skip
system.
Bayless, Troy Aikman, or just regular Troy Aikman?
He's going to be, if he gets in the right system and has a good running game, has a good offensive line, he could be an all-pro, 10 times over. I mean, he could be but if he goes to a team that struggles, I mean, he could be Blake Bortles.
So if he's on an offense with roughly 5 Hall of Famers, he's going to be fine. I got you. But no, I mean, and again, guys, we're not talking about a kid from Georgia. We're talking about a kid basically from Athens.
Yeah.
Like this is right in their backyard. And I don't think, we've talked for years. It's always fun to run some content, comparing OU and Texas and what their classes are doing. OU Georgia is becoming one of the more regular recruiting battles OU is fighting. Now, and they've landed some haymakers with Hazelwood and obviously now Vandagriff, but they've taken some beats with, Aki Ogunbiyi and some of those guys. There's been some tough losses, and I can tell you that this is a win that OU will celebrate, maybe a little extra, because they've taken some beats at Georgia's hands.
You're kind of hinting at there's not a whole lot of love lost between the two staffs. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's a fair statement because, especially you look at along the offensive line. I hate to get away from Vandagriff a little bit, but if Bill Bedenbaugh isn't the best offensive line coach in the country, it's probably Sam Pittman at Georgia. So you've got a real rivalry between those two guys. And, Pittman, I want to say is from Oklahoma. There's some connection there that I think is right, but I'm going to say that and commit to it and be wrong. But whatever. Either way, there is clearly, they recruit a lot of the same players. Obviously, Oklahoma goes into Georgia a lot. And, to kind of pull it back to what we're talking about here, Vandagriff to Oklahoma gives them a whole new level of credibility for the next 2 years going around the state of Georgia and trying to land these guys that know Brock Vandagriff. They know how good he is. They've camped with him. They've camped against him. They've played against him. All that stuff gives Oklahoma so much credibility.
Yeah, I'm not saying – I don't know how big the connection was, but it's kind of telling too. OU loses in the Rose Bowl. Who did they pick up? Shane Beamer from Georgia. They kind of keep that tie-in going there. And then, Josh, we talked.
By the way, keep an eye on Cale Gundy's Twitter account for me. Since I'm blocked, I won't know. But that's who I would most likely think that's who's going to take the shot if anybody does.
And Josh,
probably fair.
We're talking so much about elite recruits are going to want to play with Brock. Well, OU's only commit before him was Cody Jackson, who now is a 4-star receiver in his own right. What's sort of the vibe there? How excited does he seem to be now that Brock is on board with him?
What was funny is I was working on this story where Cody was going to talk about Brock. I had to be real careful what I said to Cody because I didn't know how much he knew at that point. And so we're kind of talking, and, I'm like, well, what do you think of him? Have you watched him? And he goes, no, I know he's good, but I've never watched his tape. I said, watch his tape and tell me what you think. And so he kind of watches it, and he's just like, holy cow, man, like this guy's unbelievable. Because Cody's usually like, he'll ask what I answer. Cody all of a sudden starts hitting me with just DM after DM after DM with, holy cow, this dude's unbelievable. Look at him scrambling, throwing it all over the yard. Like, I'd love to play with this. It was real obvious to him real quickly what Brock Vandagriff would mean to be part of his class. So I think there's definitely a good feel. And when you add in that Cody Jackson is a guy with legit, 10.6, 10.5, 100-meter speed, a guy with a big arm like Vandagriff that can extend plays and wants to go vertical, that's got to be his dream come true.
Well, and I got to think also with Vandagriff in the fold, we've talked a lot about 2020, what will Lincoln do, and maybe wait out Bryce Young and all that, but now I think it allows him the luxury maybe to take a transfer that may have to even sit out a year now and not look for that graduate transfer. Maybe somebody that just might have finished their freshman year and is just looking for a different opportunity. Maybe kind of more like a Kyler Murray situation.
That's possible, but then, again, at that point, do you start running the risk of, okay, because, and I want to say that I've talked to Chad Simmons, who clearly was on top of this story, knows the family very well, and he's been very adamant that Brock has, without really any provocation, has come out and said, I won't be changing my commitment. I won't be taking other visits. Once I commit, that's it. I'm done. And then once I get to campus, I don't have any interest in the transfer portal. I'm going to work and do whatever I need to do to get on the field, but I'm not a guy that's going to jump around if things aren't perfect after year one. So this is a kid. Now, a lot of kids say that. We'll see what happens. but he is saying the right things. But at the same time, if you bring him in and he has 2 whole years, and then suddenly you bring in some big-time transfer kid, I couldn't blame him if he was like, oh, is this the situation I signed up for?
Well, but see, what I'm saying is it would be after this year finish, and let's say Mordecai declares he's going to transfer somewhere. I mean, that's a situation I'm talking about. Maybe then you look at bringing in a guy that's, might have been highly recruited. I'm not talking about like a Justin Fields type guy. I mean,
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and then you could get in that conversation. I would still think like a JUCO would be your way to go, because I mean,
they need a warm body. Yeah, they're going to need someone.
Do we have any really doubt that this is starting to build towards Spencer Rattler? I mean, like that's what it feels like to me. And he's been on campus for 2 weeks, so I mean, clearly we know all that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you basically just need to get Spencer ready to where he can be a backup. I mean,
yep. I mean, I guess, Eddie, for the scoop, do you want to go ahead and give us all the summer workout stuff? I know you've really had your finger on that.
They're all studs, man. Just wait. Just wait until they get out there.
These freshmen, man, I'm telling you.
They're lifting and running and catching.
They have a different mindset than
any
of the previous
you hit it on the
classes.
head. Completely different mindset. It's gonna be unreal.
One source told me that they're working harder than any class in the history of football.
I've heard Benny's really happy. I'll just put it out there. I think OU's going to win the national championship the next 9 years.
I don't know if you guys have heard. Forget running and lifting. Neville Gallimore's walking. He's walking around campus. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys have seen that on the board, but that's big news.
Spoiling movies for everyone. I took another shot at him.
I know you did, and you should. If he is at Big 12 Media Days, that's got to be asked.
I haven't seen him on my Twitter timeline. He might have blocked me. He might have just got sick of me. I just did it twice. No, but look, I've actually watched some videos. Benny Wiley does a good job. Like, that's as much as you're going to get out of summer workout information. I mean, like, that's more than you ever. Like, you watch that stuff, and I think to myself, this is such bullshit that people think that there's something magical going on in summer workouts. You can't learn anything from that crap. I could go out there every day, and the only thing I can tell you is who was hurt and who was lazy. That's all you can really get from it. I don't think any of these guys let people be lazy. It's not like they're working them as hard as Schmitty did. Now, you want to scoop former players not behind Benny Wiley. How about that? It's not. I'm lying. All right, but Brock Vandagriff, commitment, Sooners, #1 player in the country, monumental day. OU's never had. And look, there's a lot of time left for evaluation, and he may not be the #1 quarterback when it's all said and done. But for now, in recruiting lore, we've never seen this happen. There's been Tommy Harris. There's been Adrian Peterson. Rhett Bomar was close. What was he, second, Josh, to Adrian Peterson?
He was number 4 that year.
Okay, 4 that year.
Yeah.
Was that Christian Ponder coming out that year too?
Yeah, because that was, I want to say, or what? No, it wasn't Ponder.
It was some other Florida State guy.
It was Drew Weatherford.
Oh, yeah.
That's who it was, because that was when Rhett committed out the Elite 11. He was with Drew Weatherford, and they went into like
it's like a
hat
Ross
store
or something.
And like picked out which hat they were going to go to, and Rhett picked out OU, and that's how he broke the news to everybody.
All right, so there's your emergency pod. We've got lots of content on the site. Go check it out. Bob's done a tremendous job. Josh, Chad Simmons has done a tremendous job on this. Got to give him credit too. One of our national regional recruiting directors. So thanks to Chad for keeping on top of it, and thanks to Josh for all the great work you have put into this. I know everybody's excited. We'll gonna announce a site special as well for those of you who listen to the pod that thought, maybe I'll subscribe to that one day. We're gonna give you a deal, so stay tuned for that on our social media channels at Sooner Scoop for the announcement of that as well. So thanks for listening. Thanks to everybody for the quick join for the emergency pod, and we'll see you back next week right here on the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com.